Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for the Q&A, so let me get my hat on and let's get this started. First question. I have a Fitbit which can track how many calories I have burned. How accurate is it? Alright guys, any of these little devices that people use to try to track calories, how accurate are they? They're not accurate at all. Because they're working off different assumptions regarding your heart rate, all sorts of other things, but the fact of the matter is people start wearing them for things like weightlifting. When you wear these devices for weightlifting purposes, they don't give you anywhere near an accurate caloric tracking for weightlifting in any sort of intense activity, because your heart rate and everything goes up dramatically more during weightlifting than what you would get from similar calorie burn from cardio and stuff like that. The other thing that you've got to factor in with a lot of these devices that people aren't actually thinking about is the fact that, does it really matter if you get some idea how many calories you're burning during your various exercise? Does that really tell you anything about your total TDEE? Calorie tracking is loose. All right, calorie tracking is loose. You don't have the equipment to actually accurately measure how many calories you burn through the day. So unless you're wearing one of these devices 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they're not even going to get you, I'm going to say they can't even get you within really 10% of your total calorie burn. And that's the problem we run into with stuff like this. The only way we've ever been able to get really accurate calorie burns on humans is when we put them in a sealed room, to where we actually measure the air and everything as far as determining how many calories they're burning. Little cheap devices, $200, $300, $500 devices that you wear are just not going to give you anywhere near the level of accuracy you're going to get in a lab, and they don't tell you anything about the time when you're not wearing them. You know, they're just not that useful, and people buy these because they're trendy and they're gadgets, and we all like nice, cool gadgets. Most of us do. I mean, gadgets are fun, gadgets are cool. But this is just not going to help you that much as far as your overall fitness goals. It's just not that useful. Furthermore, people need to remember you can only even get so accurate as far as tracking your actual caloric intake on top of that. Technology has helped, but we're still not at the level to where the average person has access to technology that can actually tell them on a day-to-day basis how many calories they're burning and even how many they're actually eating. But the eating is another topic entirely. All right, next question. Hey Jason, when I'm training on a linear progression program like your novice program, there are points in your training where the weight feels really heavy and the bar speed seems to be relatively slow. But if you barely complete all 3 or 5 sets of 5, you have to increase the weight next time you hit the lift. If you have a bad day next time, maybe you're a little bit sleep deprived, the new weight will be too heavy, even the old weight would be too hard at that moment. So what should I do when I don't feel like I would be able to handle the weight on a certain day? Should I just try to be likely to fail? He's asking, should he deload? The guy's actually, he listed his numbers and he's pretty much at the end of my novice program. He's right on the bleeding edge. He's probably 95% to 99% done with the program because his lifts are really good. They're right on the edge of what I recommend for people to just quit running the program at. Now, as far as the question goes, when I wrote this program, a lot of people will say things like, well, you just basically stole whatever program, this or that. No, I incorporated things from different popular programs, but I made major changes. One of the major changes I made was to the progression. And what I did is that I wrote the program to account for bad days, because everyone gets sick. Everyone has a night where they didn't get enough sleep. Everyone has a day where they didn't get recovered. It's actually, in fact, I'm going to say it's pretty normal. If you're training 3 times a week, that at least one workout every month you're going to have a bad workout. I think that's perfectly normal. For people who have real lives, who live outside of the gym, you know, who actually have jobs, who actually get sick, who actually could have emergencies that wake them up in the middle of the night. It's normal to have a bad workout, to have an under-recovered day every now and then. At least one a month is common. So when I wrote that program, that's why I said you have to miss the weight 2 different days. So no, you come in and you do it. But what I tell guys, I'm not telling people to try to do reps they can't do. Meaning if you come in and the weight is so heavy that you can only get 3 reps instead of 5 on your work sets, you do your 3 reps. And you mark that as a failed day. But when I wrote that program, I allow for 2 failed days in a row before you decrease the weight. Why? because you can have a bad day. And a single bad day doesn't equate to almost overreaching and needing to reduce weights. That's the point. It doesn't equal you pushing yourself too hard. One workout doesn't. That's why you're given 2 chances. And if you fail to hit a weight the second time for all sets of 5, then you reduce the weight 10%. You don't do it off of a single workout. And that's specifically to answer the question that this person asked, is to account for that. All right, next question. Hey Jason, how can a deload week make you grow stronger if the muscles only grow for a max of 48 hours after it's been trained? All right, this guy asked this question and a bunch of people harassed him in the comments. He's like, well, I just wanted to hear his answer. They're like, you clearly don't watch his channel. He makes a video every single week talking about this. And people are right. I probably answer this question every week in a video, but let's go ahead and do it in the Q&A because this is probably a new subscriber. Because you still train on deload weeks. You are coming in, and if you're doing full body 3 days a week, you still do full body 3 days a week on the deload week. Yes, it's very, very lightweight, but what you are doing is you're reinforcing the training stimulus from your previous overreaching. You're actually continuing to make the gains from the previous weeks, but because your muscles don't grow and adapt anymore, you're re-sparking the training stimulus with just a little bit of lightweight to cause just a little bit of protein disruption, which of course will re-signal and reinforce the previous weeks of overreaching. This is what you're doing with the deloading. That's why I tell people training on the deload week will give you better gains than taking the full week off, because you are actually re-sparking a little bit of protein synthesis. Even though you're not stimulating new growth, the previous weeks of overreaching have already stimulated it. You're just reinforcing the signal to the body. All right, next question. Hi Jason, could you explain what concurrent periodization is? The term seems to be thrown around a lot in the fitness community, but I think some people, including myself, are unfamiliar with what it actually means. Thanks. All right, simply put, concurrent periodization means that you are training multiple performance elements in the same weeks or in the same blocks. Normally, like linear periodization, which is not concurrent, you might run a 3-week block to where you do 10 reps, then the next 3-week block you do 8 reps, and the next 3-week block you do 5 reps, and the next 3-week block you do 3 reps. And it's not always just rep ranges. You could also have blocks to where you focus on speed, strength, and power. So you might actually be doing high volumes of triples and increasing those with fairly light weight. You could be going as light as 60 or 70% of your 1 rep max for triples for max speed. So you could have speed blocks and everything else. You train different performance elements in the weightlifting during different blocks when you're doing normal block periodization or linear periodization. Concurrent training means you're training multiple things at once. And they don't even have to be week to week. Like, for example, if you were to run certain versions of Westside Barbell, usually you run 3-week blocks on the speed work, but you have, when you're training 4 days a week on something like Westside System, or the conjugate method as he calls it, that's concurrent periodization. Meaning you're coming in and your big lifts, you have 2 max effort days to where you're lifting with singles. You're lifting in the 1 to 3 rep range. You're lifting for maximum strength, right? And then you have 2 days where you come in and do dynamic effort work with high volumes of doubles and triples with light weight. You know, usually using accommodating resistance and stuff, but you are mixing max effort and dynamic effort in the same week. 2 workouts for each. Also within that system, there's hypertrophy days that are allowed as well. So you could on other weeks or a whole series of time be running your max effort, your 1 to 3 rep stuff, with the other 2 for 2 days a week, and the other 2 days a week devoted to working in the 8 to 10 rep range. So you're doing volume for maximum hypertrophy in the same weeks. You're training multiple performance elements and goals in the same week concurrently instead of breaking them into completely separate blocks and training phases. So that's what concurrent periodization is. It's a periodization system to where you actually work 2 or more performance elements inside of the same week. And that can be a little confusing for people who don't know that, or people who aren't aware that it's not uncommon in most previous systems of strength training that are out there that have been used for decades to actually run things in different blocks. Like, you don't usually mix the same rep ranges, or you don't mix different performance elements inside the same week. Sometimes they're separated by 3 weeks apart. Like 3-week blocks are pretty common for training entire performance elements by themselves without overlapping. Concurrent just means you're mixing them together in the same time period, so you're doing them concurrently. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.